Just to give a little bit of background, there are some familiar faces in the room, but not everybody here will know my background. I was 16 years a civil servant, so I worked in lots of the big policy departments, in transport department, environment, local government, and then I spent 5 years in the Cabinet Office leading projects to change the civil service, try and reform and modernise the civil service. Some people would say I didn't do the best job at that because we still have a long way to go, I think, in the civil service to modernise. And then I spent the last 2 years of my career in the Department of Health. And that was probably the last straw for me, actually, because there was a voice in my head saying, you really shouldn't be here. And I think for the first time ever, when you're a civil servant, you have to, my first boss told me this, you have to work on policies at some point throughout your career that you don't agree with. And we have an impartial civil service in the UK, and that's fine, and I think that's great. But you do it in the name of democracy. You do it because you're helping to implement the policies that the public have voted for. And actually, for the first time ever in my career, I was in a department where the minister came in with big ideas to reform the National Health Service that I don't believe had been voted for. They weren't in a manifesto. And I wanted to be anywhere else but there because I didn't agree with those policies, and I was right at the centre of the department. And I was helping to bring in these changes that I fundamentally believed were wrong. So I started to think, actually, I think it's about time that I left now and did something else. And that's fine, and I guess there are lots of women in the room that have felt like that about their careers. But the question people have asked me most is, well, how did you get from there, which we can understand, that moment, to saying, well, actually, I'm going to go and run to be Mayor of London, because that's quite a big jump. The honest answer is there's lots of reasons that lead you to a decision like that, but just to go through some of them that actually made me take that life-changing decision that I did. I'd worked with all parties, I'd worked with ministers from all parties, and I think we need a different type of public leader coming forward. I think we have lots of party politicians who come straight out of university, they go into politics and they get swamped by the party machine. And actually, I think decision-making and policy-making suffers because of that, because you have this increasingly elite group of people with the same background making policies that are going to affect the public as a whole. And the public as a whole is a brilliantly diverse thing. And actually, I want brilliantly diverse public leaders. So looking at my background, I'd been in lots of those government departments that actually the mayor has to work with. I think I brought a very different but very valid set of experiences to something like that. I've got 2 daughters of my own as well, and they are my inspiration, actually. Watching them grow and being curious about what they are going to do really makes me look at myself. And at that moment, I was thinking about leaving and doing something else. I'd been telling my daughters ever since they were born, you can do whatever you like when you grow up. Any job there is open to you. And then I look around and I think, is that actually true? Is that actually true in Britain today? And you look in public life, 80% of politicians, of political commentators, of current affairs programmes on telly. So the people that are making decisions, the people that are writing about the decisions, the people that are shaping the world my daughters will grow up in are still white men. And actually, if women like us don't decide that we're going to put ourselves forward, that's not going to change. So that was a big motivator for me as well. And then I looked at the other candidates, and that was again one of the last things that made me decide. You had the same 3 men from the major parties, the same white men coming forward for that. Again, I thought we have to be able to do better than this. So all of those factors made me take that life-changing decision that I did and put myself forward for that. What did I learn from that experience? I've never, ever been as scared of a clock as I am now. It's counting down very quickly. What did I learn from that experience? It was the best thing that I've ever done professionally. And to be out of your comfort zone was actually so energising for me. I can't even begin to describe that. And one of the things I was scared of at the beginning of the process, probably the only thing I was scared of, was it going to impact negatively on my family? And actually it was the most positive experience ever, because we came together as a family like we hadn't done for years. And my girls had a mum who was full of life, full of energy. My husband used to come home after a long day at work and help on the website and the accounts. My daughters came with me to lots of campaigns. It was absolutely brilliant. So I would say one of the learning lessons is if you get the opportunity to do something radically different in your 5th stage of life, please go out there and do it, because it was absolutely, I don't regret a single minute of it. Practically though, what did I learn? It's very hard as an independent candidate, very, very hard. And actually when push comes to shove, most people, I think, in the general public, despite all of the rhetoric that we hear about people being distrustful of our politicians, wanting something different, most people, when it comes to voting, still vote traditionally. They will still vote red or blue, even in something like the mayoral election, where actually it's the one opportunity to vote for an individual, not a party politician. I also learned as an independent, you need a lot of money, you need a machine to compete with the parties, so I'm thinking about that for next time. If anybody wants to help, please sign up now. And also, our infrastructure, everything that goes on around an election, I don't think has kept pace with where the public are and what the public wants. So I was battling the broadcasters, for example, whose rules are all based on, have you stood before? What party have you represented before? What did your party get in the last election? And they apportion how much coverage you get on all of those old rules. And I couldn't play in that game because I was a completely new phenomena in that game. One of the good legacies from me running is that Ofcom are now going to change the rules. So independent candidates in the future will get a much better run of things, I hope. And actually, we've seen that's already helping. So when Bristol voted for their mayor a couple of weeks ago, they actually voted for the independent mayor, and they've got their first independent mayor, and he got very good coverage during the campaign. So all of those things, I think, are very good things. And actually, I did learn that the public are beginning to change, I think, in what they want. So the only independent candidate before me who had stood had got 5,000 votes. And I got 80,000 first votes and 250,000 second votes. So even without that coverage, I think it's clear that the public do want something different. It's changed my life, this journey, in the 5th stage of Women. It's changed my life. I met so many brilliant people during that campaign, and I've stayed in touch with as many of them as possible. One of the things I love is I worked with a lot of youth groups across London, and I now go and talk to schools, and I work with those organisations. And every time I go into a school, and a young girl, and this happens almost every school I go into, a young girl, and usually it's girls who are from minority backgrounds. Every school I've been in, somebody has come up to me saying, I was going to go into politics, but then I looked at kind of who goes into politics, who's successful. I'll never make it, will I? So I'm not going to do it. And every time I can change their mind, I think I'm hoping to slowly break through and make that little bit of a difference. Finally, because the iPad is telling me I'm out of time, finally, we are talking about stages of women and what's going to make a difference. And I've worked on so many diversity initiatives during my career. I've worked on so many gender equality initiatives during my career. And the one thing that I think, the biggest reflection, I've been reflecting on this a lot, is I think as women, we spend far, far too much time out of the spotlight being the fixers, the negotiators, the people that make it all happen, whether that's at home, running around after the kids, washing up for your husband, whether it's at work. You know, for those 80% of men, all of those male politicians out there, they've got fantastic private offices. You know what? Most of them are staffed by women. They're the ones who are making things run smoothly. And actually what I would love to see is whether you're in your 4th stage, your 5th stage, or going into your 6th stage of womanhood, I want to see us claiming public life. Because I want my daughters to look around them and be inspired by all of those women and really do realise that they can do whatever they want in life and all of those opportunities are open to them. Thank you.